clients will come to us, single mothers will come to us, and I hear like my mom's voice in them. And, their job or their whole goal is just to be able to get a couple of cards and then get their kids into a condo or a townhome or some type of home that's theirs.
Welcome to Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. I am going to be here with a friend of mine, Khai Clancy. Super excited to talk to this young guy. Before I get started, I want to remind you, go to maxedoutman.com. Check out all the offerings we have there in terms of courses and coaching and all sorts of things. I keep mentioning this. We're trying to kind of plan a trip to Costa Rica to do a men's event. And I've said this on the podcast the last several episodes. I don't really have a definitive plan for it yet. Trying to see whether anybody would be interested in doing this. Could be later this fall in 2024, maybe in spring 2025. But if you want to, shoot me an email, kd@maxedoutman. Let me know you're interested, and we'll go from there. So, hey, let me give Khai's quick intro. Khai is a 25-year-old entrepreneur from Miami with credit repair business since 2019, growing up in Arizona. He aims to help people improve their credit and educate them to maintain financial health. Dude, I wish that I was where you were at 25, honestly, in terms of knowing more about this credit stuff. But I'm super excited for you to be here. Let me give the backstory, and then I'll have you give your backstory. But Khai and I met probably 2 months ago at an event called Redeemed, which was a men's event and life-changing for me. And I'll let Khai tell the story, but it seems life-changing for him as well.
Absolutely.
It's just been a real joy. We haven't spent a ton of time together, but I tell you what we have has been just phenomenal. These kind of events, if you've never been to one, it basically condenses like 10 years worth of relationship building in like 3 days. And that's no exaggeration. I think it's like you come away from this with new relationships and like really loving these guys and really wanting to connect. And so I'm super excited to call Khai a friend. And thanks, man, for coming on board. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. I really do. And sign me up for your trip as well, because that sounds like a blast. So you have awesome. one spot filled already. But
one spot, nice.
So there we go on that end. But yeah, I mean, credit repair is one of those things where, I learned really early on, you get paid based off of, the problems you solve. And so coming out of high school, went to college for a semester, went to a JUCO, wasn't anything special, right? I could genuinely say I've always had that ambition to want to be a businessman. When people would ask me what I'm going to go to school for, it was always
entrepreneurial spirit, right? Entrepreneurial spirit. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And what international business? Like, what's international business, right? you have no idea. And so, went for a semester. I met a really great guy. His name's Louis Wilkins, who's still a great friend of mine, and he's in the real estate space, the luxury real estate space in Phoenix. And I asked him. I said, Louis, like, it's almost out of the Wolf of Wall Street, but I asked him, like, bro, I know you're making money. Like, why are you going to JUCO? Because I was asking myself the same question, but I wasn't making money. And so there was no reason for me to hop out. And he told me, he was like, yeah, I made, X amount my first deal. And respectfully, my mom said, like, I want you to get your associates, which, good job. Good on him, man. Like, giving her that respect and going back, because he was definitely making good cash. But I just didn't have that 4 years or 2.5 years to be able to kind of sit back and hope it was going to work out. So went through a little bit of like a transition, trying to figure out what I was going to do and where I was going to go. And I found myself on Craigslist one day, dialing just entry-level jobs, because I knew if I could get my foot in the door somewhere, that was the story. There was no chance I was going to let off the gas and not be successful there. And so third call in, a guy named Anthony Boca picked up. Anthony had a great personality over the phone, and he told me, respectfully, Khai, if I was to send you to the job that you called in for, you're going to quit in 3 days and you're never going to call me again. But I think that you sound really good on the phone, and I think you should come and interview for our actual company. And at the time, it was corporate recruiting. So I had no idea what that was, what a headhunter was, how competitive of like a market it was. or even
And
like
you're like
sales.
20. You're like 20, right? At this point.
I'm 18 years old at this time. And so I show up to this interview on let's just say a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Um, One of the guys who's one of my best friends now is in Keikoa Bordeaux. He has a great marketing company who we do a lot of business with. Um, and at the time, he was my manager at Corporate Job Bank. So at Corporate Job Bank, I beat out, let's just say 8 guys is what he told me. I really don't believe those 8 guys, but I think that he was just kind of telling me that to put a chip on my shoulder. And I also told them I'll work for free. Like they weren't going to pay me or not pay me, but they got me in definitely cheaper than everyone else was asking to get paid. So started at like $11.50 an hour and was getting paid based off of every single person that I would onboard to work at this horrible job that I was going to go work at, ironically. So Keikoa asked me like, hey, why should I hire you? And I told him the same thing I just told you. Like, hey, I don't know what you guys do, but if you guys give me direction, there's no one that's going to work harder than me. I'm going to run through walls for you guys. Just give me an opportunity. And he saw something in my eye that I didn't see in myself at the time. And he gave me that opportunity, thankfully. And we stayed there, did the records, and moved up, went to another larger corporate recruiting company. At that time, I was getting other people cool jobs, and I saw in my eye like, okay, the guys that were really, because I was in sales, but I wasn't in sales, right? The real sales in corporate recruiting is being able to bring new accounts on and being able to build those relationships. And so I was just a sourcer. I was just like the bottom guy, bringing in the people for the interviews so they could talk to the actual recruiters. Then I worked up to the junior recruiter. And during that time, I was working with people that worked at Boeing and some defense contracting positions. So they had really cool jobs and great stories. I'm 19 years old and I'm just looking at myself like, really what I want to do? Is this where I want to be right now for the rest of my life? And those people at that company that had worked there for 25 to 30 years, and I saw how quickly I could go down that same rabbit hole. And ironically, on Instagram, was scrolling one day, and I saw this kid named Alex Saenz. He was standing on his Bentley Bentayga in downtown Phoenix. And, I don't come from like a silver spoon, right? I came home, would always have food on the table, had a house over my head, but we weren't by any means, we were like middle class. We'll just say that.
Yep.
And I'm thankful for how I was raised, because if I ever wanted anything, I worked for it, right? My parents gave me great opportunities, and I'm thankful for being able to play like sports and stuff, but they did their job. And my mom, she worked really hard. When I was in 7th grade, she kind of became like a single parent household. And so things kind of switched up, and I had to grow up, at a different age to be able to say, like, if I want something, it's kind of up to us. And I mean, definitely went off on a tangent right there a little bit. Where were we at? I'm sorry about that.
No, I want to explore that more, but you were talking about your corporate. So you were looking at all these guys that had with Boeing
I apologize.
and some of these cool jobs.
Thank you for bringing me back to it.
I definitely want to go into that if you want to go into that, because I think it's a great part of the story.
So where we grew up, right? So the reason I was bringing up like, the family dynamic and where we were, because I grew up in an interesting area in Phoenix, Arizona, where over time it's definitely like property values have gone up because of like it being the historic district. And so it's kind of been gentrified. But growing up, it was a lot different than what it is today, right? And so it was a movie to say the least, but I'm thankful for that, right? Because it definitely, like, I was the white kid that was next to, it didn't matter if you were brown, purple, black, whoever you were, orange, like wherever you were in life, we were friends, right? Because we still rode the city bus to school together. We had each other's back. We all grew up in the same area, right? But I was looking on Instagram and I'm like, okay, that kid is in my neighborhood. No one has a Bentley Bentayga and he looks young. What is he doing? Right? And so I started following him, and I was at dinner one night and I saw on his story, he posted a guy named Tino, who would later become, one of my mentors that taught me sales, him post about, hey, if you want a job in sales to be able to learn, and work directly with me, send a video of why you should work with me. And I was at dinner at the time with my ex-girlfriend and her family. And I was texting him like, hey, I really want this job, but I can't send a video right now. He's like, do you want the effing job? So I went outside of Olive Garden and I shot this video saying the same thing again. I don't know what you guys do, but if you gave me the opportunity to be able to even work with you, there's no one that's going to outwork me. Went in and, there was it was like a real sales job. It was a startup company. So they didn't have insurance. They didn't have all the safety nets that the corporate field gave me. I had a base, but it wasn't a huge base. And I was taking 3 steps back, but I just knew in my heart I was going to go 4 steps forward. And I remember telling my dad, like, I'm going to leave this job that I'm making $75K a year at, and I'm going to go and make $2,500 base a month. And I don't even know my commission structure, but I know that I'm going to be successful there. I know it's going to be able to open up some doors. And so between, that day that I left and started working with Tino, and in the first 6 months, we were able to put up $1.2 million in collected cash, selling, events, selling mentorships, selling education. And it opened my eyes to, one, being able to have true leaders in front of you, that I'm not going to war with anyone that hasn't been themselves ever, right? And that guy, he would never ask me to do something that he didn't do himself. And so owning a business and being an entrepreneur is being able to take what you like from the companies you worked for, what you didn't like, and being able to create your own, right? And I took a lot of things that I liked from what he was able to do with the culture building, the relationship building, and was able to find my passion, which is credit repair, find that problem that we're solving. And that's what Flawless Consulting has been for the past 5 years.
That story is awesome. What is it that, and I do want to get into so many of those things, but what is it that you had that innate? Because you and I actually probably have a similar, little bit of a similar background in a different way. And I think all entrepreneurs that I've met have a like, hey, I didn't come from money. I pushed really hard.
Right.
I had this family situation which drove me. What gave you that confidence? I mean, obviously the work ethic is always there, right? But the confidence, I think, is what you see in people that are good at sales also, because it's that relationship building aspect of it that you have to have a confidence that what I have is going to solve the problem for someone else,
Right.
which is really, that's what sales is, right? And like, but how did you get to that confidence level?
So there's two sides to sales. And my grandmother taught me this first trick when I was in 7th grade, or this first rule of sales is you're finding a problem, right? All sales is you have a solution with your sale and you're finding that problem, right? But taking it a step further, nobody wants to be sold. Everybody wants to go shopping with their friends, right? When I was in school, I was a talker. Teacher, I would interrupt. I was always the one that was just like the class clown, the guy that was chirping. That was who I was. And they're always like, get Kai on ADHD medicine, get him to be quiet. First off, it was just probably parenting. I was like the baby of 4. So my mom was just probably tired. Right? I'm not saying that she let me run rampant, but a couple backhands would have probably solved that problem, being transparent. But what made me different is what made me successful later on in life, right? Being able to build a relationship with everyone. It did not matter if you put me in the hallway, I was making friends with the person that was also in the hallway, or just walking through, and I was dragging them into the situation in a way, right? Not good, but it's just a characteristic that it's either for you or against you. And I made it for me, right? Being a leader though, and being a sales guy is a little bit different than that, because you're trying to, with a sale, you're finding that problem to be able to, solve it. But being able to teach someone to sell that problem and convey that you have that solution for that, client or whoever it may be, is a little bit different of like a skill, I guess you could say. And so being great at sales is something that, you can be born with, quote unquote. It's definitely a tool that you can have. That's my skunk running back in the background. My guy, Ollie, I apologize.
You're good. We're very dog friendly around here. So
yeah, that's the guy. But yeah, so you can have those skills, but it's also, something that, you have to be able to look in the mirror, and there's like an extrovert and an introvert, and the people that are great at being able to be engineers and lock in and being able to be the media guys and be on a computer for 5 to 6 hours straight because that's what they do. They don't want to talk to anyone. That's their skill. So my skill is being able to build a relationship with anyone, and truly care, right? Like, it's one thing because people can see past that. I think that's one thing that is coming out over the last couple of years is being authentic. Like, there's full Instagrams of people that all they do in life is fact check other entrepreneurs, fact check others, and if you're not being authentic, it might not come out today, but it will in 10 to 15 years. And I'm sure there's going to be a point where someone's coming back and listening to this podcast for me. And so hope you're taking notes.
No, yeah. I mean, because now if you're watching that guy on Instagram standing on the Bentley, that's rented. First of all, even though Bentleys are really well made, I don't recommend standing on them. Side story to that, my wife did these off-road events. And they basically took them through the desert and all that. So Rolls-Royce actually did a promo, and two of the journalists stood on the hood of this Rolls-Royce in the sand. It was $28,000 worth of damage to that.
Oh, no.
So anyway, I don't recommend you stand on hoods. But to your point, now if you're saying that, you can rent hangars, you can rent, G5s, all that stuff. And so all of that is like this. I'd rather hear your story, right? Like, I'd rather hear like, dude, I grew up in Phoenix, and then I worked my ass off, and then I did this, and that's where I got to, because that's the authenticity. Gary Vee's built his whole brand around. I mean, he just uses the F word a lot. I don't talk like that, but that's his authentic self, and he's worked really well. It's worked
and
really
loving
well
a team that's not that good, respectfully. So
yeah,
it's okay. He's pretty authentic. You're a huge Jets fan. That's how you're Jets. Authentic. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, but side note too, my degree's in exercise physiology. I have another one in business, but I ran health clubs in Phoenix. I got my first club was the Camelback, and it was called Q the Sports Club. You were probably like 3 at the time, if you were even born. Actually, you weren't born, because we got pregnant with my first child when we were in Phoenix. So before you were born, and then I had another club in Scottsdale. So like, I actually lived in Phoenix for 3.5 years, but
that was during the time where you wouldn't want to go in my neighborhood, being transparent. Downtown. It's just, you probably stayed away from that part of town for sure.
Yeah, you had Camelback Road, right? Like, you had that little microcosm of the business people, and they kind of hung out and did their thing. In the
Biltmore area,
yeah, Biltmore and all that, but not. Yeah, the Phoenix it was a rough time back then, and
it was interesting. I mean, 2008, and I know it. Okay, we're talking a 10-year difference, but I remember, around 2008, 2009, like Phoenix was hit, pretty difficult. It was a horrible recession and hit our family as it hit everyone's out there. But it really did hit like our economy.
Mm-hmm.
Downtown Phoenix was dead. I remember for 5 to 10 years, you didn't go down. If there wasn't a baseball game or a Suns game, you weren't going downtown for anything. Right. And
wow.
It's been really cool to be able to see it grow and the nightlife grow, and be able to see, people come into Phoenix from out of town and add to the economy. It's been good. It's been really good.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's having you come from that. Did you have a desire? So, I have a thing behind me that says success redefined, right? So over my life, when I was about your age, I almost completely blew it with my family. We had just had our first child, and like, I was really good at my job, but I sucked at, I didn't know what to do as a dad. And so I leaned into that, which is a huge mistake. But over time, I learned to redefine success, right? Like, hanging out with, I have the pleasure of talking to and being friends with people just like you that make a heck of a lot more money than me.
Right.
Right. But that doesn't always mean that they're the type of people I want to emulate.
Right.
Were you driven by as a kid that kind of grew up in that area, were you driven by the financial success or just the overall lifestyle? Like what drove you?
So I remember my brother, and but that's such a great question, and just off top, like, it's because that question has came up over and over again. Like, my brother used to ask me, like, when's enough, right? And there's simple pleasures of just going to dinner, right? Because when I grew up, there was never a time that I would leave the household, get off the phone with any of my brothers, with my father or my mother, and didn't say I love you, right? Or didn't hear I love you. So I know what love is. I'm thankful for that. The financial stress, I mean, remembering I was probably 8 years old, 8 to 9 years old when 2008 happened, right? But I could remember those feelings and the stress and the conversations that they had about, hey, we just, lost our job. And if any of you break your arm on the trampoline, we're screwed. So no one's going on the trampoline for a couple of months until mom has a job. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember those feelings and I remember that anxiety and that angst. And so growing up, I know that, going to be able to take, just like being a business owner is taking what you like and what you didn't like from those. That's what being a parent is as well. It's taking what you like from your parents, taking what you didn't like, and then becoming your own parent, right? Or trying to. And so for me personally, knowing what love is, how do I kind of make like not a perfect life, because there's never going to be a perfect life. Just like we were talking about yesterday, how it's a heartbeat. And if it's flat, then you're dead. But to be able to have a happy life, it's work really freaking hard and have some cash and be able to, have a safety net. And when you're going out to eat, no one get weird and looking and ordering at the due to the price and not what they're feeling or wanting to eat to make themselves feel good, right? And so just being able to hold the card up at dinner and not like looking at the check, not worrying about that. Telling, like, hey, grab another drink if you want to. Those are like little keys to success. And what is success? That's just freedom. So being able to be free, there was a time where for 6 months, I wasn't working that hard with Flawless because I was free, right? I could clock in when I wanted to, but, to be able to have like true success and true freedom, that's a privilege, right? And so it's kind of sacrificing like what you want right now for what you're going to have later. And that's even working out. That's like what Justin tells us all the time, right? You're not going to see the results today. You're definitely not going to see the results today. It's going to take 90 to 120 days. And that's just life in general. As long as you're consistent with it, and you do the old David 1% better every single day, you're going to see some good success. And so with that, success doesn't chase money. Money chases success. If you're successful in all areas and everything that you do, it's going to stack up. So.
Yeah. I mean, and I've used the phrase, if you're chasing money as your primary goal, there'll never be enough. Like to your brother's point, and he may have misunderstood what your goals were, but if that's your main objective, and I mean,
I was 19 and I was chasing the 6-figure a year. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna make $100,000 in a year, and the minute that switched, and we kind of put our backs up against the wall. I have it tattooed, Adantis Fortuna Vivat, which is Latin for fortune favors the bold. And I got it before FTX trademarked it. So I don't want to hear anything from anyone. But it's the truth though, right? Like the people that are, risky with calculated risk are the people that normally come out on top. And so coming from nothing, no safety net, no one's picking up my rent. No one's picking up my car bill if, something goes wrong, right? And to take it a step further, now I have employees that they have children, right? They have their own lives. Like, one of my guys, he has $2,700 in child support a month, and like, geez, man, kids are expensive. So as a CEO, I don't, whoa, buddy, relax. So these are my stresses now, but I put myself in that position to be able to gain that freedom that is coming, later on. So thankful for sure.
I like that because I've heard that about dinner too. What's funny is that I'm 51 and I still can't go to dinner. We went to some steakhouse that was freaking ridiculous it's like $400 for a filet. And so I grew up like I'm literal trailer trash. Like I grew up in a trailer park, single mom, all of that stuff. Right. So I still have not been able to switch that part of my brain off because I'm like, that's freaking ridiculous. I'm not paying. Right. I don't care who's picking up the check, but to have that freedom to allow other people to do it. Or, we've had situations where, the tip the bill, right? Like you see a need in a server and you're like, hey, here's $100, here's a tip for $100 and hope those blesses you and all that. So that's a really good way to look at freedom, especially at 25. And that's really cool.
Appreciate you. Really do.
Yeah. So tell me about, we talked yesterday before, we were talking about, honestly, like my personal business debt situation and some of the things that we've worked through with that and some of the things I'm still dealing with from, we all make stupid decisions, right?
You have a great profile, by the way. If anyone's wondering, he has a great credit profile. That's the thing. It's just education when it comes to it. Like, you look at a 3-digit score and you're stressed, but my job being into credit is looking at it from an underwriting standpoint, right? So what are the chances that Khai is going to pay this loan back if I give him X amount of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And you are in a phenomenal position. I just got to put it out there. And
I appreciate that. Well, we talked about, and I want to get into it more, not necessarily my personal situation, which we can talk about
right.
that. I mean, we can talk about it. I don't really care. But what I use this line, and I probably use it on this podcast before. It's because it's one of my like cliches, right? I see so many things in the same way that I see transmissions, like automatic transmissions. I'm a big car guy, build hot rods. I will build anything on a vehicle with no hesitation, including electrical, but I don't touch automatic transmissions, which probably means I need to build one. But I'm convinced that automatic transmissions are run off of fairy farts and unicorn tears. Like there's some magic dust. And what I said to you yesterday is that I feel like that credit is that same way. And I also equated it to kind of our healthcare system, which the powers that be, right? The credit union or the credit bureaus, the lenders, all of these kind of use that against the average consumer because we simply don't know, right? Like, I've got an 840 credit score. Dave Ramsey said, don't ever use credit. Like all these different, it's just this like mishmash. So can you just and give us the 101 and 201 and 301, whatever you want to give us on how it all works, what it is that you do, decisions that people should make, all of that stuff. I just want to dig into it.
So first off, I want to preface by saying, I'm not a lawyer. So always seek legal counsel. If you're in a position where, you're either getting served or, you're going to be in a consumer lawsuit with regards to some type of credit card debt or repossession, whatever it may be, right? But I can only educate you guys on what I would personally do and what I have done in the past and, what works for my clients. Credit is exactly what you're saying. It's an algorithm, right? It's just like building a transmission. There's simple steps to it. But just building one transmission isn't going to be able to make you a pro at it, right? So a lot of times there's people in the credit space that fix their own credit, fix someone in their family's credit, and they're like, sign me up, billion-dollar company, I'm here for it. And truthfully, gives the credit space kind of a bad name because there's not just one way to be able to, fix a certain profile. That's why I wanted to get eyes on your profile and say like, hey, this is what I would do. Only, educating from my point of view. And so the main things of credit, the two main things that you have to worry about is 35% of your profile is payment history, right? So within the last 3 years, if it's a 30 or 60-day late payment, if you have any of those, then it won't be a positive account, okay? Taking it a step further, 90 to 120 days is a key derogatory, which is going to affect your credit as much as like a repossession would or like a closed account for 7 to 10 years. So those are big no-nos. And all late payments are going to affect them anywhere between 80 to 100 points, right? So late payments are the plague. Try to stay away from them. Even just making the minimum payment, getting on the phone with your lender, having some type of open communication is going to be able to put you in a better position than just silence, right? They can only, assume the worst. We all assume the worst once we, think of the situation. So just get on the phone. A lot of times it's not that bad as well, and they're able to work with you. They're humans on the other side of the line. But number two, 30% of your profile. So 35% is your payment history. 30% is your utilization. For revolving lines of credit, which is any type of credit card, you're going to want to go ahead and keep that under 30% utilization. That's 65% of your profile right there. As long as you keep those two in check, there's at that point, it's just age and time, and you'll be able to have a perfect profile. So a 700 score or a 750, I apologize, is 5 years, medium. So the oldest to the newest account, the medium range of it, perfect payment history, and then under 30% utilization, 2 to 3 revolving lines of credit, 1 to 2 installment loans, which is a mortgage or any type of, it's any type of loan that has a start date and a finish date, right? And you have a set schedule that you have to be able to pay. So a vehicle, a mortgage, some type of hard loan, things of that nature.
So like, is it more, so obviously a lot of guys that travel a lot like me, right? You may have a bunch of cards, right? And even if you pay them off, so you're saying you want to limit those number of cards, or does that affect it?
There's guys that, I definitely, King Credit, he's like one of the guys that I've been mentored by and stuff. He would probably suplex me if he heard me say that you want to limit the amount of cards that you have. So, but being able to say, okay, well, I'm traveling, this is the card that I'm going to use for travel, right? Or, this is the card I'm going to use for marketing. American Express Gold, it's a great card to be able to get the gold for marketing, and then being able to transfer those points elsewhere to be, fly out with Delta or, go to Dubai, whatever it may be, so you can get a 1-to-1 point ratio. And all these things, you guys, there's a million ways to fix credit. There's a million ways to use credit points. You can always message me. You can always DM me, which I'm sure there'll be like some type of link or something like that. And I give free consultations. I'll give free consultations, and we're always here just to be able to, kind of explain it, because you're absolutely right. Credit is one of those things where you only know what you know. I remember telling my mom and dad, like, hey, I'm fixing credit. Well, I'm having a heart attack. Like, oh man, my boy's a scammer. He's going to end up in orange. And I had to reassure her that the only orange I'm ever going to be in is Hermes. And, I'm too pretty to go to jail, Mom. It's not on the cards for us. So.
Yeah, I've said that before. I'm too pretty for jail, and my wife is a boxer, and I always tell her I'm too pretty to box too. So, because I have a funny shaped nose as it is, I don't need to get hit in the face. Although I will say she has hit me in the face on more than occasion. Why did you go into credit? Well, we're holding mitts, and if you get hit when you're holding mitts, first of all, it hurts because she's got a terror, she has a terror of a right cross. But it's your fault because you screwed something up if you get hit when you're holding mitts. But anyway, side note about boxing. What made you want to do credit? Again, knowing that are you trying to bring, did you have a motivation to bring a level of integrity to the industry, or what drove that?
So working in the real estate space, I wanted to be different, right? I didn't want to jump from selling real estate education to getting into the real estate side of things. There was someone that was doing credit. And it was brokering, right? Brokering deals.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made sense for me. I saw the problem that I was solving. So Casey Thompson, he was at an event in in LA, Los Angeles, 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago. And I asked him, I was able to catch him outside. And I asked him hey, you went from building, an LSAT course back in the 90s, selling that for millions, and then taking that money and building an online gambling casino. And then from online gambling, you did sports betting. And from sports betting, you did, a bank for medical marijuana, right? And I asked him, those are the most random things in the world. So
right.
How did you find your why, right? You said, to be able to be an industry leader, you have to solve a problem that a bunch of people are having, right? And going into COVID, I knew that just hearing, personally, how many people could have benefited from having a low interest rate card, and for that could have covered them for 6 months, right? Arizona, we were, shut down for 2 weeks to a month, if that. And our governor was out there at dinner without a mask and stuff. So Arizona wasn't taking it serious like the other, parts of the country. But I was speaking to East Coast people, and they were really going through it during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw that problem that was, okay, well, there's never going to be a time where someone could tell me how much my time is worth. I'm always going to be able to say that I will spend no more than $4 for good coconut water, right? $5 for good coconut water, $1,000 for a phone, $200 for AirPods. But the better that I get with this time and my skill set, and just being able to consult with people, I'm going to be able to raise my prices, right? Because it doesn't matter. It's a 15-minute conversation. It's the 10 years that I've been able to build and 1,000 of clients that I know that I've been able to help. And so I knew that I wasn't going to have a product, or I wasn't going to get into clothing. I wasn't going to get into, coconut water. I wanted to have a service. I wanted to have something that was going to be a consultation based business that I was going to be able to help people. There's been time and time again where, clients will come to us, single mothers will come to us, and I hear like my mom's voice in them. And, their job, their whole goal is just to be able to get a couple of cards and then get their like kids into a condo or a townhome. Right. And then they've heard, because nobody comes and says, Khai, I want to spend $1,000 and just work with you for credit repair. Right. It doesn't happen. Everyone
Right.
wakes up and they just want to spend $1,000 on a new belt or a new bag. But you heard no if you're coming to me. No, you can't get that house. No, you can't get that car. No, you can't get that business funding. And so for us to be able to genuinely say, yes, I can help you, right, and have a solution for them. We're not selling them snake oil. We say, hey, within this time, because I feel conversations are beat by expectations from the front, right? So I feel like I paid for a service that I didn't get. I feel like you guys, didn't communicate as much as you said you were going to. From the jump, we tell our clients it's a, realistically a 4 to 6 month process, but we're trying to get the job done in 90 to 120 days. We have a money back guarantee that if nothing changes in 90 days, we'll give you a full refund. And if we go up to 6 months, which is the longest my program will go, and we don't see at least 60% of these accounts deleted, we'll give you a 50% refund, right? So all these things were, like I said, what I saw from other companies that I liked, what I didn't like, and I was able to create on my own. But I knew that, respectfully, if I had a service that people were paying for and they paid for it and they got what they paid for, there's no reason that we're not going to be in business today and in 15 years, right? And that first client is going to send 3 more, and those 3 are going to send us 9. And that's how the referral system is going to be able to be built. And we're going to also go ahead and run great marketing, right? So these are the little things that I saw that worked with other businesses, and I was able to kind of go into this space. But at the end of the day, credit repair today is not going to be the credit repair that's going to be in 12 months, right? The dispute methods that I used back in 2020 are not the same dispute methods that we're using, today most of the time, because there's 1,000 ways to be able to skin a deer. And so, we want to be able to make sure that we're staying innovative and that we're being effective. And because time is of the money, right? That's time is everything.
Yeah.
I could give you your money back, but if I wasted 4 months of your life when you were supposed to get into a house in May, you can't get that time back, and you have to go rent for another year. And that's on me, right? Because you paid for a service. And so we want to be able to make sure that if they're coming into our program and we set those expectations, that I feel conversations aren't coming later on with some validity, right? Because everyone's going to have a bad day. Everyone's going to feel like I didn't talk to you enough. But as long as you're able to educate these clients and tell them what you were able to do, there's no reason that a conversation won't change that I feel conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you see? How do you see those things changing now? I saw a couple of weeks ago, obviously the politics of the whole thing, but it's like, we want to limit, kind of not fiduciary, but they want to limit the amount of interest that a company can charge you. I mean, some of these rates are 25, 26%.
It's predatory. Yeah, it really is.
Predatory lending. So how do you see how do you see the whole, and obviously I don't know what the latest number is, but people are carrying a ton of credit card debt, obviously. And so like, how do you see that changing over the next few years?
It's like a quick statistic that I kind of tell people. It's pre-Great Depression numbers for bankruptcies and subprime auto loans being delinquent, right? So 30, 60, 90-day late payments, repos. It's not the best right now. America was built off of debt, right? Yeah. When you take out an account, let's just say with Verizon Wireless, when you're getting a new phone, that phone is worth $1,200, okay? Or $1,500. They'll take out an insurance policy for $1,500, $2,000. And then once you charge it off, they'll get their money back from the insurance policy. Okay. They'll write it off to Uncle Sam. So they got their money back twice at that point. That's why they love charging stuff off. Right. Then you go and you can't ever open up a new account with them. Very few companies like American Express will do like a rehabilitation program. Sometimes Chase will, sometimes Navy Fed. Those are the big guys. But Citibank, Discover, the subprime guys that are, the ones that are doing the 15, 20%, 23%, interest rates, those guys, they're charging it off and you're never going back to them. Right. And so I can't tell my clients, hey, don't pay them back. But they already got their money back twice at that point. You're kind of just like getting a lighter and lighting money on fire in front of your face and saying, I hope it worked, and you feel good because you paid that debt back, but you're aging the debt for 7 to 10 years from the day you pay it back. And people don't understand this. And so, it's our job to be able to educate people because, that's where I really saw there a lack of. I never had a credit class in high school. In college, I didn't really finish college, as we know. So I don't know if there was a credit course, but most of the people, we have enough clients that I could, confidently say there probably isn't a credit course because a lot of people would be in a different position.
There's free water bottles, free t-shirts, and then they don't tell you that if here's this, $3,500 credit limit card, they don't tell you have to pay that back. Like you would think that most people would put 2 and 2 together, but these are 18, 19-year-old kids that have never been taught anything. Their parents haven't really taught them about it.
It's a lot easier to get $100,000 or $200,000 in student loans than it is to get $25,000 for a good business idea. Right?
I know. And so it's so crazy.
Firsthand, I know this. Firsthand, so it's just the truth. But at the end of the day, there's a need for it, and you only know what you know. And so being able to make this, relatively simple like information to educate the masses is kind of our mission. And slowly but surely, I feel like we're getting the job done. It's not going to happen overnight, but Rome wasn't built in a day, so I'm okay.
That's right. Well, and what's cool is that our friend Justin, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, has a great new book, Power of Ownership, by the way. Go check that out. But he talks about there. Oh, it's right there on the screen. But he talks about changing the health of the world, right? By through that education. And it's interesting to think that you can actually have a big impact in the world through credit repair, which again is like, when you think that, you think what your mom would think, right? Like this is scammy and which
oh man, what's going to happen?
What's the deal? And so I think that's super cool that you're doing that. What kind of financial, one of the things that came out of Redeemed for me, and honestly, you were a big part of this and meeting you and having conversations with Maxed Out Man, we have really focused on guys that are more in my age group, more in my state of, the time of life. And honestly, God really laid it on my heart that like I have a voice, experience, and expertise to speak into younger men's lives.
Absolutely.
And so I'm super excited for that. And I'm very thankful to have connected with you to kind of allow God to drive that home in my heart, kind of a thing. But all
definitely
that
spoken. You've made an impact on me. I really appreciate you. I want to make that a public announcement that you really have just made a huge impact on where we're going. Truthfully, just with marriage and how I'm going to steward my family. So I appreciate you. I really do.
I love that, and I'm excited to see that grow as well. So the reason I set that up is because we have different stages of life that we need to make different financial decisions, right? So based on what you've seen, can you just give me a couple of pieces of advice for like, all right, so these are the, when you're early 20s, when you're 35 and have a family, when you're looking at retirement. So if we just kind of do those three, right? And obviously we're not financial planners. We're not giving, financial advice. We'll do that disclaimer here and I'll put it on the podcast thing so we don't get sued.
Thanks.
But like, what kind of things should people be looking for in terms of their decision making? I'm, like I said, I'm in my early 50s. I made some stupid business decisions, some stupid debt decisions, in my 20s and 30s and 40s even, that I've worked through and I'm still working through. But like, give us some of those little tips that we can use.
Yeah. I mean, so earlier stages, I think it's really smart if you have no credit, sometimes having no credit is worse than having, bad credit. So really kind of just taking a step back and saying, okay, what's the goal, right? Because you shouldn't ever get a credit card with the intention to be able to go run up a check or buy anything that, you really didn't have any plans to or the money to to begin with, right? But I think being able to get money back or be able to spend money and then get points, it's very important in life, right? Setting yourself up correctly, whether that be with a with no credit and adding a line or asking, a family member, hey, do you have a low interest rate card or a high limit card that you're not utilizing a lot that you could throw me on for 60 to 90 days, right? As an authorized user to be able to give them some history.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that 17, 18 years old. People talk about doing it, with their kids when they're very young. That's awesome. I don't really, it's going to start at 18, right? So seasoned account, you're still going to be able to be, way higher and way more well off than a kid that has no credit.
Right.
So buying either an authorized user, which you can go through, multiple companies. Reach out to me because I will tell you who to go through. You won't get them through me, but I will tell you what companies to go through. I haven't signed a deal with them yet, so I want to go ahead and not publicly tell them, say their name. But great guys.
We'll update the notes once those deals are done, right?
And then focusing on because that's a revolving line of credit, getting a car, right? Or, a moped, something that's an installment line. That's, very big. Being able to build credit from a young age, being able to add as much history as you can so that when you're 5 years in, you have a couple of accounts that are 2 to 3 years old. There's no reason you won't be above a 700 at that point if you're able to not overutilize your credit, right? But a lot of times as a young kid, that credit card is an emergency, right? You're not in a position to be able to, have $2 to $3 grand sitting around. So being able to have a $3,000, $4,000 card is very important. And as time goes on, the older you are, the higher limit of cards you should have to be able to, just for those rainy day emergency funds. I can't tell you what investments to make or anything like that because like you said, we're not financial advisors, but look at your plan and the lifestyle that you want to be able to have. If you want to be traveling a lot and be away from, your hometown, your home state, I wouldn't say that you should have a bunch of real estate or Airbnbs that you're going to have to maintain unless you have someone that is, maintaining them or property managers or anything like that, right? If you don't know stocks, I wouldn't invest in stocks. I'm not one of those guys that is trying to learn a new skill. I know what I'm good at, which is building teams, building businesses, building companies. And so my investment portfolio is reinvesting into my company to where one day, we're going to be able to sell for X amount, God willing, and I'll be able to pay people to, have a family office. And that's going to be my investment. But for credit, right, being able to make sure that you are setting yourself up for the worst case scenario. As Christians, we talk about it a lot. When you're walking with Christ, it's always, people are like, oh, hope for the, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. But when you're walking in faith, it's always being able to walk and just know that it's always going to work out. But God gave you these tools and these, tricks and tips and made you listen to this podcast from a random guy for a reason so you can go out there and have these tools. So go out there, get a couple of cards. And then I want to kind of just preference it with bankruptcies, right? So if you've went through bankruptcies, if you've had a bankruptcy and it's been dismissed or discharged, you can get it removed off your credit profile before the 7 to 10 year mark, right? So, I don't want people to look at bankruptcies as an end all be all. I can't even imagine the rates of, suicide after, bankruptcies and going through that. And just because the angst and anxiety that I hear from people that are just getting called by debt collectors, right, which is predatory as well. You only know what you know. And so if you have gone through a bankruptcy, you've had it, any type of stress like that, just know that there's companies out there, even if you don't work with us, other credit repair companies that have been in the game for a while could, help you get out of that position a lot faster than 7 to 10 years and, get you back on your feet. So it's a good thing to know.
I love it. And if you're a little bit if you're kind of older, and you're still dealing with this, it's just a matter of kind of getting to the right person like yourself and using your company and saying, okay, this is a situation I'm in. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you're been having a hard time getting a line of credit, business line of credit or whatever, there may be some help that you can give also along that way, right?
Yeah. So after the Silicon Valley bank crash, during COVID, we'll just say during that time, you could add an authorized user and Joe Schmo can go out there and get $30,000, right? But after that crash, funding in itself really dried up.
Mm-hmm.
Investment companies aren't, too keen on like the next Google, Facebook, Meta, whatever it may be. They're trying to be safe and position themselves. So you should as well, in a way, and go out there, get a few cards. I wouldn't go looking for installment loans unless you have, A1 credit or anything like that. And we could definitely have conversations in the future if you ever have any questions with regards to, because every credit profile is different, just as every person's different. What works for me will not work for you. And that's just, genuinely the truth. But being able to put yourself in a position of even just knowing. So if you have less than perfect credit and you're trying to figure out, okay, is this a credit repair company or a debt consolidation company, which is lighting money on fire, debt consolidation. Credit repair is just kind of like a rehab center to be able to get you back on your feet for that bad knee. I would just ask them, specifically, like, what's their goal? What's the plan? Any money back guarantees, anything like that is a pretty good indicator. And, if it's a debt consolidation company, most of the time they're going to tell you it's a 12 to 24 month plan. And that, at the end of it, anything under God's green earth to be able to get you to be a client, because respectfully, these guys are, getting paid $15 to $20 plus commission of whatever you're, bringing in. But yeah, there's going to be a little bit different of a conversation. One's going to be telling you, this is not what you want to hear, but the truth. And then the other's going to say, like, hey, this is too good to be true in a way. I can be able to pay this at 30 cents, 40 cents on the dollar. They're not giving you a loan or anything like that, which a lot of times they position their company to be doing. So yeah, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Dude, I think that's a great place to land the plane, as Micro always says. But tell us how we find you, where we go to contact you, and let's get that going.
Yeah, so on Instagram, Killa Khai Clancy, and then flawless.credit. So you can go and book an appointment for free. Either myself or one of my trusted associates will be able to give you a free consultation. But if you're coming from the pod, I would like for you to shoot me a DM on Instagram so I could personally hop on the phone with you and we can get you going either with credit repair or get you some loans, whatever it may be. But just give you some good education on where to go.
Awesome. Khai, I appreciate you, man. I think this is awesome. And I'm excited to see what's next. I know you got some deals brewing right now. And I'm just excited to coordinate and collaborate as well. So have an awesome day, man.
We'll talk soon. We'll see you soon.
All right.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.